Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avatara varisthaya Ramakrishnaya te namah. Dear devotees, today we shall see another monastic disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Ramakrishnaananda. He is popularly known as Apostle of Sri Ramakrishna to the south. Though the whole of South India should be grateful to him because it is he who established many of the centers in South India, starting from Chennai to then Madras. And also, he is the person who brought Sri Sharada Devi to the South India. And also, he is the person who brought many of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, especially Swami Brahmanandaji Maharaj, to all our centers in the south. So, and his was a life totally dedicated to Sri Ramakrishna as long as he was alive. And then later on, for some time, that is till Swami Vivekananda returned from America to India in the Rambazar, Baranagar monasteries. And then onwards, he dedicated his whole life as per the order of Swami Vivekananda to South India, especially at Chennai. So now let us start with one of his sayings or the advice to the devotees. He says, a devotee asks him the question, what makes the mind impure? It's a good question. Because of impurity only we have not been able to realize God. Now, why do we become impure? What prompts us to be impure? Baladiva niyojitaha, Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita. As if even though we know it is not good, we are forced to become impure as if by some force. So, here he is asking the question, why? Why it is happening? Then the Swami Ramakrishnaanandaji replies, desire. Desire is a worldly desire, is a root cause which prompts the mind to become impure. They free the mind of all desires, and at once it becomes pure. Is it so easy? Mind is full of desires. Buddha also, after his realization, he realized that Desire is the root cause for all man's downfall. What stands on the way for realization is desire. Desire brings then unhappiness. So the same thing, Swami Ramakrishna here it is telling that desire, free the mind of all desires, and at once it becomes pure. Just put this question to your own minds. Now, what is in my mind? Where two things are there in the world. One is the God, another is the world. Do you want world or do you want God? We have to put that question to our own mind. If we say no, we want only God, then give up all desires of your mind. In the Kathopanishad also, the Yama gives advice to Nachiketa. Nachiketa there he says that this is, there are two paths. One is towards God, another is towards the world. Both are different paths, diametrically opposite directions. So whichever you choose, do you want realization? Do you want eternal happiness? Do you want to realize Atman? Then choose the path of God. Otherwise, choose the path of the world. We, in our cases, usually it is a mixed one. Sometimes we want God, and many other times, most of the time, mind is full of desires, and we hanker to fulfill it. So, here Swami Ramakrishna is telling, free the mind of all desires, and at once it becomes pure. A man, however, who has no idea of God can never get rid of desire. That is, one is a worldly person who does not know anything about God. He never goes towards that at all. He will be spending his whole time in fulfilling the desires. And desires have no end. You fulfill one desire, before you fulfill itself, there will be another 10 desires in your mind. Which one you will go on fulfilling? And as long as this body is there, this desire also will be there. So unless and otherwise, you give up the desire. So he says, the lover of God sees that instead of bringing enjoyment, these desires are the source of all miseries. Desire, where does it take? Desire only takes to the miseries. One after another misery is coming. We do not know, we think of miseries. We do not think of the cause of that misery. Buddha thought over that. So he said, the root cause for suffering is the misery. He said. So the same thing, Ramakrishna is telling here that these desires, instead of bringing enjoyment, they are the source of all misery. He understands that in God alone, he can find the satisfaction of all desires, for he is infinite bliss, and all other pleasures are finite and perishable. So the fundamental truths Swami Ramakrishna is teaching here. See, he goes to the root cause of our problems. So God and mammon cannot be served at the same time, says the Bible. So God and this world, you cannot have attachment to both at the same time. And it will not be there also. Occasionally we think of God, and all of the time we are thinking only of this world. We seek matter first and spirit afterwards. First we want all our desires should be fulfilled. And we spend a lot of time in only in that thing. Only occasionally we think of God. Sometimes 5 minutes a day, half an hour a day, 1 hour a day, we think of God. The rest of the time, the mind is completely immersed in the world. If we love God for what we can get from Him in the world, we really love the world, not God. And we can never be true devotees. The true devotee loves God just for the joy of loving Him, because God is the beloved. The next point he comes. We do believe in God, we do pray to Him, but most of the time, what for do we pray? We pray to fulfill our worldly desires. Oh God, give me this, give me that, this has not happened, that has not happened, please see that it happens. We have put the question to yourself, what are we praying to God? Are we praying for pure devotion? Or are we praying that, oh God, I want to see you? We always pray our own worldly problems. To solve the worldly problems, we seek the help of the God. And spirit afterwards, that is the world first, and then the God. We should reverse the process. Our hearts also must be free from any ulterior motive. If we love God for what we can get from Him in the world, we really love the world, not God. And we can never be true devotees. The true devotee loves God just for the joy of loving Him, because God is the beloved. Ananda, bliss, is the best definition of God. What is God? God means bliss. Satchit Ananda, we say. Sat, Chit and Ananda. Ananda is the definition of God. The real ideal of every human being is Satchidananda, eternal life, infinite knowledge, and everlasting bliss. For all men wish to live forever, to be all-knowing, and to have eternal bliss. But God alone is all life, all knowledge, and all happiness. Therefore, God is really the ideal of every living being. So we should think of God. We should surrender ourselves to the God. We say Sharanagati. We say I have totally dedicated or surrendered myself to the God. What do you mean by surrendering? Surrendering means there will be no I thought at all. The thought of me, I, it has to disappear. Only the place should take place, thou or you. You are. Everything is you. Everything is you. I want you alone. And making him satisfied. Tasmin tushte jagat tushtam prinide prinitam jagat. That is, if we can satisfy the Lord, tasmin tushte. If God is satisfied, means the whole world is satisfied. Jagat tushtam prinite prinitam jagat. If we love God, then the whole world we will love. Tasmin tushte jagat tushtam prinite prinitam jagat. So this we should remember. So therefore, we should have only God in our mind, and whatever the other things we may be doing, but do it for just for doing its sake. Don't expect anything from that. So if you can live like that, then only this will happen. There must be something that will occasionally remind us as to who we are and what we should do, so that we may not be altogether forgetful of our duties here. It is religion that fulfills this purpose. This question we have to put to ourselves, but we never do it. A simple question, who am I? Why have I come to this world? Where am I going from here? These are the fundamental questions. But because it is very complicated, it is difficult to answer, or we don't like such questions for ourselves. Who am I? Do I not know I am this so and so? You are not that so and so. Before you came, your so and so was not there. And when you die, that so and so will not be there. So that which comes and goes cannot be the permanent thing. You have to think that. Who am I? So if you go on thinking, who am I? Then you will understand, you will realize that you are God yourself. And then, where am I going? Where do I go? It's a big $100 question. Nobody knows what happens to us after the death. Only the scriptures can tell you. Kathopanishad, if you read, there you will understand what happens to you when you die, what remains after your death, and where are you going, and where you should go. All those things the Kathopanishad discusses. And there the Yama to Nachiketa, he tells, you are an eternal being. You did not come from anywhere. You are not going anywhere. You are always there. You will always be here, but not your body, but what is inside, the Atman. That Atman, you are that Atman. Know that, then all your worldly problems will be solved once for all. And you will also know that you did not come from anywhere, you will not go anywhere, you are always eternal, you are always you are a living being. You will be able to understand that. So, now coming back to the life of Swami Ramakrishna Maharaj, we have to refer to Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda, when he was extremely busy in West, lecturing, touring, meeting people, but always his mind internally, it was always thinking of India. How to do good to the India, that was his one thought. So he was aware that more important work was awaiting him in India. That's why if he wanted to stay in the West, people would have worshipped him, people would have kept him there eternally, fulfilling all his requirements and everything. But every moment of his life was given to the India. So he thought how to improve, how to make this one. So this man, he had decided that a main work was to organize an institution in the name of his master and having its branches all over the world, even in all over India and also abroad. The mission which Swami Vivekananda had, which Sri Ramakrishna had entrusted to him, was that an organization, a religious organization should come. Otherwise, what is the meaning of Sri Ramakrishna's coming and going, Vivekananda's coming and going? The world would have forgotten by this time. He has to leave a permanent mark behind. The permanent mark, what was Swami Vivekananda's mind was organization. Without an organization, no work will progress. That was his full conviction, and that he has seen in the West. So many organizations, they were all working well, so well, and it was developing. It was developing the country. So he thought a spiritual organization should be started in India. That was uppermost in his mind. So when he came to India, and after touring the present Ceylon, that was a part of India, then Rameshwaram, Madurai, Kumbakonam, all those places, he came to Chennai. Or then at that time, it was Madras. It was some of the citizens of the Madras, after keeping him for about 9-10 days, they approached him and requested, Sir, I should please send one of your monastic disciples, a sannyasin, to start the work in Madras. We shall start an organization. An organization, that mutt, will have to be run by a monk, and not an ordinary monk of your quality, your standard, your this one. Please send one monk to here. Swami Vivekananda, then he thought over, and immediately Shashi Maharaj came to his mind, that is Swami Ramakrishna. He said, I shall send you one who is more orthodox than all your more orthodox men of the south, and who is at the same time unique in performing puja and meditation, and unique in the Shastra study. The next, then they were unhappy. Then Swami Vivekananda, as per his promise, the next steamer actually brought Swami Ramakrishna to the south. His devotion to Swami Vivekananda, we should understand. He had so much faith in Swami Vivekananda, he knew very well that Sri Ramakrishna himself is working in the body of Swami Vivekananda. So whatever Swami Vivekananda utters, it is the utterance of the Master, or Sri Ramakrishna. So he was so much, even when in the Baranagar monastery, when Swami Vivekananda was there, Ramakrishnaji was performing puja, serving Sri Ramakrishna, and also serving his brother disciples to test his orthodoxy and his so much of devotional type. Swami Vivekananda, one day he tells him that whether he has conquered all these things and is beyond all these things, he wanted to test. So he asked Shashi, today I am feeling like eating a little bread, and that too from a Musalman shop. Can you get me some bread? Then a man of orthodoxy, a man who was immersed in the worshipping of Sri Ramakrishna day and night, according to the scriptures. And Shashi Maharaj, even without a second thought, ran from the Baranaga monastery and went to a Musalman shop and purchased bread and brought it and gave it to Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda did not believe his own eyes. Did really Shashi do like this? Then he understood he has surpassed all the three gunas. He has surpassed everything what is told in the scriptures. He is a man of Atman. He has realized it is Atman. Otherwise, it is not possible to do like this. Then another important thing was, at that time, Swami Ramakrishna was the only person that who had not left that Baranagar monastery for going on a pilgrimage or going somewhere these days. Day and night he was completely busy in serving Sri Ramakrishna and also and taking care of the other monastic disciples. I will come to it later on. But when Swamiji said, Shashi, you have to go to the south, you have to go to the Madras, then without a second thought, I should remember Swami Ramakrishnaji had left college and he was very busy in as long as Sri Ramakrishna was alive in serving him day and night. And now suddenly to leave to a land, an unknown land, unknown people, unknown language. He did not know a single word of Tamil. He did not know to very fluently speaking in English. Even that he did not know. But with all those things, the moment Swami, and also he had not left the place, the Baranagar monastery, even for a day, because Sri Rama, in the relics, he was seeing Sri Ramakrishna physically present. And he used to serve that photo of Sri Ramakrishna as if Sri Ramakrishna is alive. From morning to evening, whatever was Sri Ramakrishna's routine in the Kashipur garden house, the same routine, he made that photo follow that. Early morning, he would bring a neem stick, and because Sri Ramakrishna used to brush his teeth with a neem stick in Dakshineshwar and also in Kashipur. So he will cut a nice neem stick, tender neem stick, and make it very polished, very nice, and keep it near the bed of Sri Ramakrishna's photo. Then he will pray with tears in his hand, "Oh Sri Ramakrishna, now Suprabhatam, it's early morning, please get up and wash your teeth." Like that, from morning to evening, he was serving Sri Ramakrishna in this photo as if Sri Ramakrishna was a living personality. And to him, suddenly after 4 or 5 years, suddenly Swamiji says, go to Chennai, go to Madras Mutt. And without even inquiring anything, he was ready. He took a book of Gita, Kathamrita, then some English books which were available because he has to brush his knowledge in English. So he took it and went away. And in another chapter of Sri Ramakrishna, another chapter of Swami Ramakrishna starts in Madras. People who have not seen Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Ramakrishna made them see in the photo of Sri Ramakrishna, telling them that he is ever alive, he is not dead and gone. In fact, when Sri Sharada Devi then was after the passing away of Sri Ramakrishna, she was about to remove her bangles. because now she has become a widow, and as for the village custom, she cannot wear this one, and also she was to shave her head, and also she was to wear a white sari. All those things were there, the traditional widow's life. When at first Sri Sharada Devi wanted to remove her bangles, bangles which were made by Sri Ramakrishna himself, and that too he had seen in a vision, how he had the vision of Sita, and he had seen two bangles in her hands, and he has instructed Hriday to make exactly the same type of bracelets which was in his memory. He explained to Hriday, and Hriday has made it. So the Sharada Devi is the incarnation of Sita Devi. So she was about to remove those bangles. Then immediately Sri Ramakrishna appears in a vision to Holy Mother. He says, "Hey, where have I gone? What are you doing? Where have I gone? I have gone only from one room to another room. That means I am alive, I am not dead and gone." So hearing that, Sharada Devi immediately gave up the thought of removing the bangles. And also she was wearing a white sari but with a red border. There used to be a small border in her sari also. Because of the village people customs, she was afraid of the sampradaya or the tradition of the village people. So to avoid their criticisms, she wore a white sari with a red border, and always she used to wear. Anyhow, and now Sri Ramakrishna has said, "Where have I gone? I have gone from one room to another room." Now, if we study the life of Swami Ramakrishnananda, we understand that Ramakrishnananda was not happy Sri Ramakrishna staying in the other room. He wanted to bring him back. Whole his life's spiritual sadhana was bringing back Sri Ramakrishna from that other home to this home. That is, Sri Ramakrishna to him and to Sri Sharada Devi and to other direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. And with that assurance, we also should believe Sri Ramakrishna is not dead and gone, but he lives in this picture. He lives in the photo of Sri Ramakrishna eternally, a living human being he is. So Ramakrishna in his life is to manifest that Sri Ramakrishna's presence in the photo. So we will see later how Swami Ramakrishna made that possible in his life, in his stay at Ramakrishna Math, Chennai, or the Ramakrishna Math, Madras. So now coming back to his life, Swami Ramakrishna in his life, Shashi was his pre-monastic name. He came from a very austere and very good Orthodox and Brahmin family, coming from the village called Antpur. Even today that place is there, a few miles from Calcutta, and there also we have an organization, a mutt. It's a mutt center, and in the same house where Shashi Maharaj was born, that house has become a mutt now. And his father was a very great tantric pujari, a very orthodox pujari. That's why he imbibed all those qualities. Shashi imbibed all those qualities from his father. He was a great Brahmin boy, and with the traditional doing puja in the morning, afternoon, evening, and studying Chandi. All those religious qualities were full in Shashi Maharaj's life. He was born in that place, Chapur, that is the birthplace of Swami Ramakrishna and his father. He also remained a devotee till the end. We were surprised when the first Durga Puja was done. Swami Vivekananda invites him to look after the puja, and he was a Tantradarak. Tantradarak means one who assists the pujari. Tantradarak is a main person than pujari himself, because he utters all the mantras. He guides the pujari how to do puja. So he was the Tantradarak in Durga Puja, at the Belur Mat when Swami Vivekananda conducted the first Belur Mat Durga Puja. Now, and this Shashi, he was is the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. And when I'm not very chronologically telling here and there, his incidents lives I am narrating you. Now, in the Baranagar Mat, after Sri Ramakrishna is passing away, all these boys, they all come, they will be staying, and one day they go to Antpur. That is the place of another monastic disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, that is Swami Premananda. His mother was highly devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. She actually, she invited them all, you come and stay, why are you suffering so much in Baranagar? No proper food, no nothing, all those things. You do and do your spiritual practice there. So they all went to stay for a few days. And at that time, there one day, suddenly Swami Vivekananda in the night, he feels we should all meditate. Put the fire, that is called as a dhuni. Put the fire and they will all sit in front of the fire and go on meditate. They all sat. After some time, Swami Vivekananda got inspiration from the above. And then he said, you look, Sri Ramakrishna has asked us to live a monastic life. We all should become sannyasins. Whoever wants to become a sannyasin, raise your hand. We shall all take oaths today of the monastic oaths. Then all the boys who were there, they all lifted their hands, and then Swami Vivekananda gave them all new names. The old name has to be forgotten. That is the tradition. So to each one boy one name he gave, and when it came to his turn of Shashi, Swamiji embraced him and he said, look Shashi, I wanted to keep the name of Ramakrishnananda for myself. I wanted to keep my name as Ramakrishnananda. But I have seen you on Kashipur, and also I am seeing you in Baranagar Mat. With what devotion you are serving Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna, you are not allowed Sri Ramakrishna to go anywhere. He is always with you. He is supremely pleased by your service. So you deserve that name more than me. So you please have the name of Swami Ramakrishnananda. That is how Shashi becomes Swami Ramakrishnananda. Then now Shashi, after completing his school studies, he comes to Calcutta for he joins the Metropolitan College, at that time a very famous college, and he also makes friendship of his own relative called Sharat. Shashi and Sharat both start coming to the Dakshineshwar. And how they somehow the first they came to know about the Keshav Chandra Sen. They went and met him because he was a spiritual man. And then he had an institution called Brahma Samaj. So these two people become the members of the Brahma Samaj. And often they were hearing about Sri Ramakrishna from the mouth of this, what is his name? So, Keshav Chandra Sen. They were hearing the name of Sri Ramakrishna from Keshav Chandra Sen. Then they thought, why not we go and meet him once? So they decided, both of them, they go to to meet Sri Ramakrishna. Then it was in 1883. So 1883, and afterwards Sri Ramakrishna lived only for 3 years. 1886, he passes away. So they had contact of Swami Sri Ramakrishna only for 3 years. Sri Ramakrishna, seeing Shashi and Sharat, they were small boys, college boys. So he asked Shashi one question. See, you are a man, you are a devotee. You do believe in God with form or God without form. That was the usual tradition in those days, because Keshav Chandra Sen himself was not believing in God, in God with form. Brahma Samaj was known for Nirakara Dhyanam. So, Keshav Chandra Sen, you are going to Brahma Samaj. whether and at home you worship the gods and goddesses, your parents are all devoted. In which one you believe, with form or without form? When it was asked, Shashimara, without hesitation, boldly he replied, Sir, I do not know even today, till today, whether God exists or not. The very existence of God is not sure. Then what can I say whether I believe in God with form or without form? God exists, that itself I am not convinced. Usually Sri Ramakrishna does not get defeated by talk. Nobody can defeat him in the talk. Immediately he replied to Shashi, all right Shashi, don't worry. You pray to God like this, oh God, if at all you exist, you give me devotion and give me, protect me, give me protection. Like that you pray, if the God is there, He will guide you, He will protect you, He will take care of you, He will give you devotion and all. God is not there, you are going to lose nothing. Shashimana liked this idea very much. For the first time, he got a talk like this from great Sri Ramakrishna. He has said. Then afterwards, Shashi started coming to Sri Ramakrishna often. Now slowly, his interest turned towards God and giving up these worldly matters, worldly objects. And his study also was slowly limping. He was a very good student. He was a rank student. But once the mind turned towards God, then toward these worldly things, slowly started diminishing. Then what happened? One day he came to Dakshineshwar. There he was on the bank of the Ganges, sitting and he was studying a book. That was the book of Sufi saints. The Sufi saints' lives are very wonderful, very great, devoted to God. And he was too much immersed in that. Then at that time, on that way, Sri Ramakrishna came. He had given him some work earlier, but Ramakrishna is forgotten in his studies. So Sri Ramakrishna came and called him 2, 3 times, Shashi, Shashi, like that. But he was so much immersed in studying that book, he did not hear the words of Sri Ramakrishna at all. Then Sri Ramakrishna came very near to him and then he patted him. Then he asked, what are you doing? What are you studying? Then he said, this is Sufi Stein's life. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, it is all right. But if you forget your duties for the sake of study, you will lose all your devotion and God will become distant to you. He wanted God intensely. So the moment he heard those words, then he took that Sufi book and threw it to the Ganges. And that was his last of studying any books when he was with Sri Ramakrishna. Then he came to the final year BA. At that time, Sri Ramakrishna was taken to the Kashipur Garden House, earlier Shampukor, from there to Kashipur Garden House. Then Swami Ramakrishnaji felt, now am I to go to college and study? And very few days are there for the examination. Or shall I give up everything and serve wholeheartedly Sri Ramakrishna? Then ultimately he decides it is better to serve Sri Ramakrishna than to attend to this examination. He gave up his studies and full-time worker, as a full-time saver, as a full-time devotee, he came away to Shampukor and then in Kashipur Garden House. Kashipur Garden House, his one thought was, how can I keep Sri Ramakrishna healthy, happy? He was doing everything for him without tiring, morning to evening, morning to night. And many days he would not even sleep. Whole night he would fan Sri Ramakrishna if it is very hot. So like that he went on serving Sri Ramakrishna till the last day. It was the final year examination was coming very near, but he went on thinking whether service to Guru or study. Service to Guru or study. Then he decided, then it is better to serve my master than to devote myself to the studies. So he gave up the college and then remained permanently with Swami with Sri Ramakrishna, day and night serving him. Then other disciples also gave their very best in the service of the master. But Shashi's case was conspicuous. He knew no rest. He did not care for any other spiritual practices. Service to the Guru was the only spiritual practice to him. And fortunately, he was endowed with a strong physique. But more than that, behind the body, there was a mind whose strength was increasingly sustained by his love and devotion to the Guru through the till the last moment of the earthly existence of the master. He served as best as he could. Before Sri Ramakrishna lay down for the final departure, he sat up for some time against some 5 or 6 pillows which were supported by Shashi, he who was at the same time fanning him. When the master was in Mahasamadhi, the disciples could not at first realize what it was. Shashi rebuked those who thought that it was otherwise than Samadhi, and along with others began to chant the holy text. But despite their earnest hope, the body did not indicate any sign of life, and the doctors finally declared it to be the Mahasamadhi of Sri Ramakrishna. Then the greatest trial was at the burning hut. Feelings of a contrasted character visited the soul of Shashi. Now the joy and bliss the master had shed over them all at the time of the Mahasamadhi came over him, and he sang the name of the master in triumphant praise. Then a sense of utter loneliness stole over his joy and made him the victim of most violent grief. When he had when the body had died out, amidst the silence that prevailed, Shashi gathered the sacred relics. The sacred relics actually became Sri Ramakrishna in a human form to him. That and the sacred relics were not two different things to him. Relics was Sri Ramakrishna. So he went on doing service to Sri Ramakrishna in that way. One incident I tell you, which happens in this time, for the simple reason, because of Shashi Maharaj, the Arati which we sing today, it Swami Vivekananda composed it. The reason for composing it was there is a small story behind that. In the temple, Shashi Maharaj used to perform the puja. All the other, it was in Baranagar, all the other monastic disciples, they were engaged in spiritual practice, either japa, meditation, or intense study of scriptures. Each one was doing something or other. And Swami Ramakrishna, he had told them, you engage 24 hours in your spiritual practice. I will go and beg food for you and offer it to Sri Ramakrishna and then feed you all. Exactly he was doing that. So he was called as the mother of the mutt. Then on evenings he used to do the Vesper service, which we all do now nowadays in the Sri Ramakrishna temple. In the evening we call this an Arati. Arati used to perform. And in those days, this Khandana was not yet started. They used to sing, chant and sing this what is done in the Kashi. Jaya Shiva Omkara, Hara Shiva Omkara. And Swami Ramakrishna, chanting that loudly, used to put fan, that is Chamram. Chamram, first he will do Arati, then all the other things, then ultimately Chamram. But he used to become so emotional. Sri Ramakrishna was so much present to him, so he was not aware of the time at all. Sometimes it will go on for 15 minutes, some days 30 minutes, and all, but the fervor in which he was doing, nobody could say anything. But they were all feeling there should be a system 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Then we can attend to our other duties, just like doing meditation or bhajan or whatever it is. So one day they all went to Swami Vivekananda in his room and they said, Swamiji, we are facing a problem. What is this? This Shashi goes on doing arati, sometimes half an hour, sometimes 1 hour, sometimes 2 hours. It is better. There is a system. There is a time. Then Swami Vivekananda laughed and he said, all right, go and tell Shashi. They said, no, 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 we do not dare to tell him. And what fervor he is doing it, we cannot wound him, we cannot tell him anything. Then Swamiji thought for a while and said, all right, wait for some days. They all went away. After 2 or 3 days, he called Shashi Maharaj. Shashi, you see, I have composed a small song on Sri Ramakrishna. Then the moment he heard on Sri Ramakrishna, he became excited. Yes, Swamiji, yes, Swamiji. And this stotra, we shall use it for Arati. It is very good. He said, yes, Swamiji, definitely, please give me, please give me. At that time, Swamiji has composed only the first 2 lines. Khandana Bhava Bandhana, Jagavandana Vanditamai. Niranjana Nara Rupadara Nirguna Gunamai. And then Namo Namo Prabhu Akyamanadita. In the middle lines were all not there. He gave it to Shashi. He said, you see, you sing this and see. If it's all right, you can follow it. So Shashi Maharaj, in the night itself, he went and put his own ragam and he said, yeah, excellent this is. And he started from the next day onwards for his arati sung. But then what happened? Because it was only 2 lines in the beginning and Namo Namo in the end, it used to take hardly 5 minutes. But Shashimara was not too much satisfied. 2 3 days he did it. And all the other monks were very happy. Now the time has been fixed for Arati. So, but after 4 or 5 days, Shashimara went to Swamiji and with folded hands said, Maharaj, now this time is very, very short. I'm not feeling satisfied in my heart. I want to do more seva to Sri Ramakrishna. Swamiji laughed and said, all right, give me some more lines I will add. And the rest of the lines he added in that sutra is wonderful. If you go deep into the meaning of it, you will understand how Swamiji has praised Sri Ramakrishna in that stotra. Anyhow, give it apart. Now, that was started, and then all became Swamiji. This Shishimana became happy because it used to be about 20 minutes, and he used to pull it a little also. Sometimes it will go up to half an hour. Anyhow, then then other monks also were happy. So this is how the Sangam, this prayer came into the Ramakrishna Mission Arati. So now afterward, Shashi Maharaj, after on the advice of Swami Vivekananda, he goes to Madras Mat. From there, it becomes in another life. Shashi Maharaj service to Sri Ramakrishna, and his service to the Holy Mother, and his service to Swami Brahmananda, all those are vividly explained in Shashi Maharaj's life. The next week, we shall see the Madras part of his life story. With this, we shall stop today. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Samji, thank you, Samji.